Welcome to Inferencing using text features. In this webinar, I will be showcasing how to have students focus on studying the text features of an informational text as a means to identify topic. It is very important that students are able to quickly identify the topic of an informational text prior to them being able to do anything else with said selection. In essence, this approach also becomes a pre-reading strategy. Remember that you can adapt it as you see fit, especially when it comes to doing things digitally, since you, as teachers, have mastered that approach. I am Ivan Dominguez, your middle school reading language arts coordinator and presenter for today. So what materials will you be needing today? If you'd like, the note taker was emailed to you, so please feel free to download it and print it. And then you'll need something to write with, pen or pencil, whatever suits your fancy. I want to quickly start with reminding you as to why we read informational text. What is the purpose? Informational texts teach us something new. They add to our existing knowledge, help us understand our world more fully, help us make connections to our lives and our learning, and they satisfy our curiosity. So many important reasons as to why we read informational text. It is not merely to inform. As you can tell, there are so many other reasons. So it's important that our students understand why we read informational texts. Informational texts are unique in that they provide support through text features. Let's use those to help us with our reading. Let's start with title and subtitle talk. One very important text feature of informational text is the title and subtitles. They can be of so much help to us when we read informational text. Let's take a look at some examples of titles and subtitles. I am going to show you pieces of text from an informational selection. Your job will be to, number one, read each of the text boxes, and two, determine which is the title and which are the subtitles. Are you ready? Here we go. You may pause the webinar and continue when you are ready. Remember, what you are doing is reading each of them and determining which is the title and which are the subtitles. All right, we are ready to continue. So please note that students may need to define the words that they may not know. Some of these you may come across, so it is going to be very important for students to define words that they may not be familiar with. I bet you quickly guessed which one was the title simply because the text was larger. Yes, the title is Prince of Central Park. Next, I want you to think. Based on the title and subtitles, what do you think the selection will be about? What do you think is the topic of the selection? Pause the webinar and at this time and jot down a few ideas. Okay, let's continue. I'm guessing that one thing you definitely wrote down is hawks, among others. But the one that probably stands out most to you is hawks. You may have also written down, again, as I mentioned, some others. So let's continue. So there you have your titles and subtitles. We're going to move on now to trying to guess the organizational pattern of the selection. How do you think the author organized this informational selection? We already know that the title is Prince of Central Park, so let's place that at the top. Let's place it first, as that is where we typically find the title of the selection, pretty much at the forefront. Now here are the subtitles. You may remember those from earlier. Now your job is to place them in the order that you think the author placed them in. Write down your answers on your note taker, pause the webinar, and continue when you are ready. Once again, place these in the order that you think that the author placed them in, and continue when you are ready. So welcome back. There you have your title and your subtitles. And here is the next question. Based on how you organize the subtitles, what organizational pattern do you think the author used? Based on how you organize the subtitles, what organizational pattern do you think the author used? I'll give you time to pause the webinar at this time and then continue when you are ready. Right, so we are ready to move on. I'm thinking that you may have written problem solution as a possible organizational pattern because we see the word solving in one of the subtitles, solving one problem. You may have also jotted down at least two others. So the common organizational patterns, ladies and gentlemen, when it comes down to informational text is description, sequence, compare and contrast, cause and effect, problem and solution, advantages or disadvantages, classification, or definition. Again, these are the common ones. If you would like to get a copy of these, by all means, please email me, reach out to me, and I'll be happy to provide you with these along with additional details. Because when it comes down to our students, they will be needing a reference sheet. It's not just a matter of asking them what organizational pattern, they're going to need a reminder. So providing students with the actual definition of some of these along with a description is going to be a much help to them. So as I said earlier, it's likely that you wrote down problem solution or you may have even written some of these other ones. We won't find out the organizational pattern until we've actually read the selection, but at least we have some kind of idea now, right? So we have some kind of idea. So let's move on. Before we continue, let's do the recap of the title talk. So what did we just do? We read the text pieces, defined any words that you do not understand, determine which one is the title and which ones are the subtitles. Based on the subtitles, what do you think the informational passage will be about? And asking students what gave you that idea. So we're identifying the topic. Next, place the title at the top and place the subtitles in the order in which you think the author placed them. And finally, we can ask students what organizational pattern do you think the author used? Simply by looking at those subtitles. And again, it's important, I'll reiterate that it's important to give students a list of those organizational patterns. So let's continue. Let's move on to a picture walk. This is our next text feature. This is still based on the same reading selection. At least we know now that it's titled Prince of Central Park, and we may also be feeling that it's possibly about hawks. The pictures that are part of the selection will assist us in finding out more. So that the first set of text features students need to look at, again, title and subtitles. And the next thing would be for us to look at any kind of media, any kind of pictures, whether they be in the form of simple pictures with captions, charts, graphs, and even timelines. So let's look at the pictures that accompany this particular selection. I'm going to show you the first picture of this selection. Your job will be to study the picture and make notes of anything you notice. Feel free to refer to the caption under the picture. Write down and complete this sentence starter. I noticed that, and then you complete that, anything and everything that you observe of what's going on in the picture. So here is the picture. Once again, what you're doing is you are making notes of anything you observe, people, places, and things, and anything in regards to the caption, and you are completing the sentence, I'm noticing that, or I noticed that. At this time, please feel free to stop the webinar and continue when you are ready. Hello, hello. I'm sure you noticed that it's in Central Park and that it's huge, 843 acres, and it's the size of 800 football fields. I'm sure that you also noticed the body of water off on the far right, and as well as all the buildings around Central Park. I'm also wondering if by some chance you've already made a connection back to the title. Remember, our title was Prince of Central Park, and I'm sure you did. We have one more picture to look at, so let's take a look at that. So here is the other picture that is part of the same informational selection. Once again, your job is to study the picture and make notes of anything you notice. Feel free to refer to the caption once again under the picture. Write down and complete the sentence starter. I noticed that. Okay, I noticed that. Once again, pause the webinar and continue when you are ready. Welcome back. I bet you noticed the building and its architecture. And how can we miss that nest and the bird, which is, I'm guessing, likely the hawk. I'm thinking you also noticed the word Central Park once again, which are part of the title and also part of the previous picture. And I'm thinking you noticed the words pale male. I'm thinking that pale male may be a male hawk, maybe, and it's called pale because of its color, just maybe. And this is his nest, possibly. The reading will definitely help me determine more. So let's do what we just did. Let's do a recap of what we did for Picture Walk. We looked at the media, and again, any pictures or charts, and make sure that you read those captions as well. And we may also have to have our students define any words that they do not understand or are not familiar with. Then they will study the media. Yes, you can have them look at who, what, how, anything that they see, anything that they notice, and they can do the sentence starter, I noticed that. But then one thing also, what we want them to do is, and I'm inviting you to do the same, is what new information have you learned? So far we've had the titles, subtitles, and pictures with captions for this particular selection. Now we're going to put it all together. We're going to place the pictures in the order in which you think the author placed them. Your job now will be to place them with the subtitles. So let's look at that. So what you are doing now is now I'm showing you the title, the subtitles, and the pictures all side by side. So what I'm going to do is task you with, where do you think the pictures went? With what title, subtitle, where do you think the author placed them under by which subtitles? So I'm going to give you some thinking time, so pause the webinar and resume when you are ready. The answer as to how the author organized it will be revealed in a minute, but first, let's look at it all together. And this is the question I have for you. What do you think the selection is about? Take time right now to write at least 2 to 3 sentences. And as in routine, pause the webinar and continue when you are ready. So what do you think it is about? Write down 2 to 3 sentences. Welcome back. Perhaps you wrote down something like, I think that this selection will be about hawks who are raising their young in Central Park, but it has been a challenge and people are looking for a solution. And all this, ladies and gentlemen, I was able to infer simply by previewing and making inferences from the title, the subtitles, and the pictures. So I was able to do so much with it by simply focusing on titles, subtitles, and the pictures. So are you ready for the answer? In what order are the subtitles and where did the pictures go? How did the author do it? Let's take a look. So here are the first 2 pages. You're going to check your answers. We have Prince of Central Park, an unlikely habitat, and then the picture that went in that particular section or with that subtitle was the one on Central Park and how it covers 843 acres. The next subtitle is an unusual place to raise youngsters. And then the other picture, the picture that accompanied that was pale males. That's what went there. So I'll give you some time to just very quickly check your notes. And let's move on to the next part of this selection. Let's continue. So here is the last page. So here's the next subtitle, Challenges for the Hawks, and then Solving One Problem. See if you got this one as well. See if you were able to do exactly what the author did. Did you get them all right? Now, what I would invite you to do next are some guiding questions, some reflection questions now. And this is what I would want you to think about. Compare what you did to what the author did. What was the same? What was different? Feel free to make inferences now about what each section will be about. So going back and reviewing these, we can have our students go back and now do inferences simply by looking at those subtitles and wonder what each section will be about. Remember, once we start reading, we will get a better understanding of the author's organizational pattern, as well as his purpose for writing the overall passage. I also wanted to point out, ladies and gentlemen, that the passage that I'm referencing here is from the 4th grade 2015 STAR Reading Test. I did that so that you, as middle school teachers, are free to use the release passages you like, or any informational passage for that matter, for your respective grades. Now let's take a look at what we would be doing next. Here is what we would do thereafter. It is somewhat like a KWL chart with a small twist. We can begin by writing the topic once we have identified it here, and I'm pretty confident that it is hawks. We can then have students write down what they already know about the topic. And yes, in this case, hawks, it could be anything that they know about them. Then we can have students write down what they already know about hawks based on the text features. In this case, they are raising their young in Central Park and that they have challenges, but people are looking for a solution to some type of problem, and any other inferences that students may have. So let's continue. Remember that part of being a reading informational text is that we learn about the world around us, and it satisfies our curiosity. And at this point, we are intrigued by what may be happening with this hawk in Central Park. So we want to have students raise their own questions. What are they wondering about? What are they wondering about? So what we would do is tell our students, you already made some inferences by just looking at the subtitles, titles of course, in media or any pictures of the passage. So what do you want to know more about regarding the topic? And I'm even posing that question to you as teachers. What do you want to know more about the topic? What we want to do is write down at least one question on the chart. Okay, so we're going to go back to the chart in just a little bit, but what I want to add is this about the questions. Do know that I take all questions, so long as they are related to what we have been discovering based on the passages, title, subtitles, and pictures. So the reason I take all the questions, ladies and gentlemen, is because I can connect it back to purpose. If students find the answer to their questions when they read, then the author had purpose to include it and include that information that was relevant to the selection. If students don't find the answer to their question, it's likely the author had no purpose for that specific detail. It wouldn't make a difference in relation to the information that the author wanted to convey. But I will tell you that in one instance, I had a student who posed a really good question, and we didn't find the answer to it. But we then discussed, that would have been a good detail for the author to have included. So again, when it comes down to what are we wondering about now, what question do we have, I do like to take them all so long as they are related to the title and subtitles and pictures we have been looking. So let's take a look at the chart next. So then students would go back to their chart, and this is where they would add their questions. It could be 1, 2, 3, whatever questions they have regarding to the topic. So that is what they would do next. The next step then would be to have students read the selection. And of course, you as a teacher would have them apply any strategies that you give them when it comes down to informational text. But one thing we do want to make sure that we emphasize in is reminding students and see if they find the any of the answers to the questions they raise. See if any of their questions are answered. Now, I will say this, at least now when they go with the reading, they have an idea as to what they will be reading about, and they are not going in completely cold to the reading. One recommendation I have for you as well, consider having students underlining details that directly support or connect back to the subtitles. That always helps them to narrow down their focus. I'm thinking that your curiosity is piqued regarding the hawk in Central Park. So I know that you can read it for yourself. Like I said, it's the 2015 fourth grade test. But now let me give you a quick summary of the selection because I want you to see how it is so helpful for students to do the title and subtitles along with the pictures. I'm going to connect it back to each of the titles and subtitles, referencing everything back. So, an unlikely habitat, a male red-tailed hawk was spotted by people in Central Park because of his light-colored feathers. So, see, I was right about that. They named him Pale Male. They wished to mate for him, and that soon became a reality when a female appeared. The folks called her Lola. An unusual place to raise youngsters. Pale Male and Lola built a nest in front of an apartment building near the park. The nest held the eggs that eventually hatched. Now then, what happened? There were some challenges though. Crows also lived in Central Park and they considered hawks the enemy. So they often chased the hawks away. Some people who lived in the building also did not like the hawks living in their building. So remember that building that we saw earlier in the picture? And now, what happened with solving one problem? What happened there is that the nest was moved to the side of the apartment building, and to their surprise, Pale Male was already building a nest there. He continued to be spotted at Central Park for years. He was then named, going back to the title, Prince of Central Park. So in wrapping up the overall activity, after students have finished with the reading and done everything they got to do with their reading selection, we would start by asking them which of your questions were answered. If they were, where did you find the answer? Asking them then, what new information did you learn? Discussing what was the author's purpose for writing the passage? How did the author do it? Were there facts, descriptions, statistics, etc.? And finally, the ever so important question, why is this topic important? So we would go back to our chart and have the students complete this last part, what I learned about the topic. So let me provide you next with some additional ideas of how to do this overall activity. So here's something you can do if you don't necessarily want to do things digitally. What you can do is pair students up, place title and subtitles in envelopes cut up. Each pair gets one envelope. I highly encourage, again, that you do it in pairs instead of teams of 4. It's nice to have them work in pairs. So each pair of students is then given time to study and play around with the title and subtitles to include organizing them. Then you stop and discuss as a class. And then place pictures in another envelope. Once again, each pair gets one envelope. They study the pictures and then match them to the subtitles. And again, stop and discuss. So you can actually use envelopes and cut things up and put them in there, and you reveal them one at a time and then discussing as you move along. So this strategy is one that we know can work from now until forever when they go into college and so on and so forth, giving them that practice of look at your title, look at your subtitles, look at your picture, look at your captions, identify the topic, and be prepared and give yourself something to know about before you even jump in the reading. But I want to also then, this works just as well for STAR. So what do? Before reading the selection, get students to warm up. No sense in going in cold. Again, ask them to read the title and subtitles. Preview the media available. It can be anything from pictures with or without captions, charts, graphs, timelines, etc. Ask them to determine the topic of the selection based on those titles, subtitles, and the media that they study. And then they have them make some quick inferences about what each section may be about as well. Again, this is when that whole thing about that pre-reading strategy comes in. That is it, ladies and gentlemen. And as always, you know I am here to support you. You know how to get a hold of me, whether it be an email, a call, or a text. by all means, reach out to me with any questions. Thank you for your time and have a great day.